I'm Dana Shagru with CE Ag World Greenhouse Produce, an innovative brand that engages with the rapidly expanding global greenhouse produce industry through a variety of platforms. Our mission is to educate and connect greenhouse produce growers and industry allies to help them better understand the global food industry. On this episode of CE Ag Talks, I'll be speaking with Molly Stanek, Executive Director of the Aquaponics Association. Molly, welcome to CE Ag Talks.
Thank you so much, Dana.
Today, we'll be talking about all things aquaponics, from how it works to how it varies from other growing methods in CEA. So to begin, Molly, you've been involved in the CEA industry for more than 15 years. In that time, you've co-founded Imagine Aquaponics, spent several years as an ag tech entrepreneur, and are now the Executive Director of the Aquaponics Association. What first drew you to CEA and specifically aquaponics?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. I am really proud of my non-traditional background. I actually went to school for fine arts and was a practicing studio artist for a number of years. And during the economic downturn of 2008 and 2009, like many people, I was faced with some challenging circumstances. I had a great studio that I had worked to build up over years, but with my clientele feeling very strapped and uncertain, my sales plummeted, and I found myself needing to find a new direction. Fortunately for me, I had been really inspired by the experience of running my studio. My studio was located on 180 acres of former farmland that had been converted back to prairie. There was some gorgeous mixed hardwood forests. And it was just a stone's throw away from Aldo Leopold's family cabin, where he wrote much of Sand County Almanac. And I grew up in the city. I grew up in like city and suburban areas, to be clear. And living out in that natural surroundings really, it woke up a part of me in terms of realizing how important those intact ecosystems were and how beautiful and diverse and rich and depthful. It was something that once I connected with, I couldn't view the world the same way. And so I ended up going back to school. And originally I was thinking of getting a teaching license, but as it happened, all of my prerequisites required a whole bunch of biology. And after I started taking a few environmental biology classes, I got really hooked and ended up focusing on environmental biology and conservation work. That led me to a very fortunate internship and then employment offer with my first aquaponic farm, which was based in an old crane factory in the Rust Belt of the US in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was a really wild project. It was amazing in so many ways. You would walk into this building and be presented with former railway channels that were growing tilapia and yellow perch that we were working to further develop the genetics for to increase the sale of yellow perch in Wisconsin with the Great Lakes Water Institute. We were also growing multi-tiers, indoor vertical structures full of lettuces, herbs, watercress, all sorts of really amazing crops. That was a company called Sweetwater Organics. They were a bit ahead of their time, as you might imagine, like 15 years ago, but they were one of the first indoor vertical models of aquaponics, which we later expanded to an outdoor greenhouse with fruiting and flowering crops as well. So that was my first introduction. I really fell in love with the waste to resources model, the opportunity to kind of think outside the box in terms of how to grow food closer to the point where it was consumed, and the chance to kind of look at the existing model. I was born in Madison, Wisconsin, and when I was about 15, my parents took me on a tour down memory lane, and we visited the old farm that they had been renting when I was born. And it was now 2.5 miles inside the city limits because of suburban expansion. And seeing all of the ways in which all of these, valuable peri-urban spaces are being developed and are no longer available for agriculture, let alone conservation, really made me feel motivated to investigate new ways of agriculture technology development. So that was my start. From there, I founded Imagine Aquaponics, ended up being very interested in the technology side of the world of agriculture. So I joined on with Plenty, the vertical farming robotics company in San Francisco, as general manager of their South San Francisco farm, and then ended up through my career winding from greenhouses and technology development with Sensei Ag in Hawaii and Los Angeles to returning to my home state of Wisconsin to serve as VP of operations for Superior Fresh for a few years. So my career has been really amazing. I love the current state of aquaponics. I feel like there is more fresh energy and funding coming in on the research and community side than there's ever been. And even if the macroeconomic trends are a little bit challenging for investment, the trends on the larger scale in terms of weather events and even pricing on the crops that we grow are trending in the right direction.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely sounds like you have a very diverse background in the CEA industry and aquaponics. So that's awesome that you were able to get all of those experiences. Now, as I mentioned in your introduction, you are the executive director of the Aquaponics Association. Can you tell us more about that organization?
Yes. So for me, stepping into the role of executive director last year was a bit of a homecoming for me. Back in my early days of CEA, when I was involved with Imagine Aquaponics, I was a founding member of the Aquaponics Association. And it was really exciting for me to be asked to consider the role. The executive director is involved with all sorts of program and project development. We are involved with a lot of educational programs. We have curriculum that is licensed to various nonprofits that are using it in schools and prison systems. We have educational webinars that happen monthly and are open to the public. We are working on a proposal to create a specific industry code for aquaponics, which currently doesn't exist. And we have a lot of educational outreach that we do with our conferences, events, workshops, and we support a lot of other organizations with our resources and support. So it is an exciting role. The organization itself is, at this point, we're 13 plus years in and going strong, which I think is quite a testament because nonprofit management is not easy. Trends come and go, but we've remained the top authority in terms of aquaponics organizations, especially with our conference every year, despite some of those challenges.
Great. Now, I did look on the aquaponics website and it defines itself as an advocate of the aquaponic grower. Can you explain some ways that the Aquaponics Association is an advocate for aquaponic growers?
Yes. So one of the ways in which we really work to support aquaponic growers and farmers is by cultivating a workforce. We would do a lot of work with curriculum development and deployment so that as people start farms, they have the ability to hire people who are familiar. And it's amazing how much impact an educational program can have starting in elementary, middle school. Once you have familiarity with a subject, and aquaponic systems are really engaging in education. So they tend to make quite a memorable impact on children. They think of things in new ways. And when they get to the point of making a career decision, they're much more likely to consider a program that leads them in the direction of horticulture, aquaculture, or aquaponics. And all of those are areas in which we have, I'd say, a very strong need for talent within the space. And with projected growth, that's only going to increase. So that's the first area. The second is we do a lot of work to keep tabs on policy. We keep an open dialogue with the USDA to kind of understand where aquaponics is within like policy frameworks and to try and advocate for aquaponics being incorporated into decisions. So one example of that is our North American Industry Code System project that I mentioned prior, in which we are looking to have aquaponics added as a category within the North American Industry Classification System, which will allow us to, for those who aren't familiar, when you are registering your business, you have to choose a category for it. And right now, if you're an aquaponic grower, you're forced to either choose horticulture, greenhouse horticulture, or aquaculture. There is no middle ground. And our goal is to have a new industry code created that will allow us to better track growth, better assess needs for funding and research, and ultimately allow for more funding to come into the space as it's legitimized.
Awesome. Well, Molly, thank you again for taking the time to speak with me this morning. I really enjoyed getting to learn more about aquaponics and your role at the Aquaponics Association.
Thank you so much, Dana.